Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Entangling Life podcast with me, your co-host Andy Yim, and the wonderful Hattie Willis.
Thanks, Andy.
You like that?
I loved it.
Good. Receive your flowers.
Oh, I'll take them. Where are the real ones? Yeah, bring them in. I love it. I'm excited for this episode.
I can tell.
But before we go into it, shall we talk about the street interviews, or should we get them rolling and the listeners can hear for themselves?
Let's have a listen.
I reinvent myself about once a month.
I moved here from France and built a life here.
I quit my corporate job in my 40s and retrained as a midwife.
I have a lot of feelings about reinvention of self. Controversially, I am someone who has probably tried to do it a load of times and think it's the biggest mistake I make every time I try and do it.
Can we share some stories here just to make it real?
Let's. But you start before I'll tease mine, and then you. What is reinvention?
This is like a cliffhanger.
Yeah,
I think I thought back to my earliest reinvention story. It was in primary school, where Tottenham Hotspurs came to the school and they selected 3 players to come on their summer academy, and they said to me that I was 4th. And I remember at a young age feeling like I really wanted to be with my friends who got selected and I got left out. And it really drove me at that time and for a number of years to show that I'm a good footballer. And it got to a stage as a teenager, I must have been about 17, 16, where I had to be honest with myself. And some people might laugh when they hear this, but I realized I hate training and playing in the cold. My fingers were numb, my hands were numb. It was not an enjoyable experience. And I packed it all in and said, I'm not going to play football like this anymore. And that was my first step or stage where I felt like I'm hell-bent on being a footballer.
Yeah.
Actually, I no longer want to be a footballer. What do I want to become next?
Oh, I love that. By the way, I hard relate. I used to, at school, I played hockey for a bit. I hated that it was the winter season. And so whenever you hit the ball, your hands, the vibrations would hurt.
Oh my gosh,
I used to hate it. And actually, I only got back into hockey, it ended up being by accident, but I ended up coming back as the goalkeeper. And that was great because it was really hot.
Gloves.
Don't just get gloves, Andy. Head to toe padding. I could wear trackies under there. I could wear whatever I wanted underneath. I was toasty. I mean, I had bruises left, right, and centre from where the balls were hitting me, but
you're warm.
I was warm. So I relate.
Yeah, you can relate.
So when you were doing that reinvention to escape the cold, and realizing that you maybe football, something that you'd striven so hard for, wasn't right. What was that process like?
And it's deep, because football, as you know, masculinity, and it's so macho, and it's the thing to do as a boy. It's like rugby. So there's probably part of that in my identity at the time. Like, it's the thing to do. And I probably suppressed being honest about how I felt playing in the cold for years. Apart from my family, no one really knew that I was suffering so much. So to come out and actually say, like, I'm not playing football anymore. I hate playing in the cold. I think it took courage at that time. And part of the courage was standing up against that masculinity of, you must play football. Boys love playing football. How could you be a wimp and not play in the cold?
Yeah.
And part of that courage was, I'm stepping into unknown. I don't know what I want to do with myself, but I definitely don't want to be a footballer. And
were your brothers big into football? Because also you've got all this, like,
Not really, actually.
Okay.
My older brother played football at first, but he wasn't passionate to a degree where he wanted to make it as a footballer. My younger brother couldn't care less.
Okay.
So there wasn't that internal pressure from them, which probably helped.
Yeah.
Because if there was, it might have been a bit harder to do that. Sorry, I just need to clear my throat there.
It's like me in that episode where I have the coughing fit.
I just want to finish talking. I don't want to cough.
You good?
I'm good now.
Yeah, you sound like you're good.
Do I sound good?
Yeah, you do.
Where are we going with this episode? All these bloopers. Okay.
Cass is going to have a fun editing. It's like the spiders, the coughing fits. Like, what else is to come? No spiders.
Okay. So
you make the tough step. And actually, I think it's interesting to talk about so much of, I think, reinvention I guess there are two parts, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's escaping something that we don't want to be seen as. So like
Yeah.
my stories are a lot about wanting to be something I wasn't, so that I could fit in more, I could do better.
Yeah. I
And
like to think of it as letting go.
yeah,
What am I going to let go of? And what am I going to hold on to going forward?
I think that's a much healthier, spoiler alert, version of reinvention.
Okay.
So you let go of the football.
Yeah.
What that was one big moment, and then
Yeah.
that freed you up. What did that make room for?
Did I ever tell you about the EFT story with my dad?
No.
So, back in the day in Tottenham, like the local newsagents wouldn't stock like the Economist and the FT and these papers because the readership wasn't in this local area. So my dad had this good relationship with a corner shop owner, and he ordered in the Weekend FT and the Economist for us because he could see myself and my brothers were curious about businesses and stocks and shares, and we had no idea what it really meant, but we were just curious about it. So to feed our curiosity, he would buy these papers and we would like sink our teeth into them. So I was actually really curious about how businesses fit together. And I know that's such a geeky thing to say as a teenager, but it wasn't even for career purposes. I was just fascinated at stocks and shares and how businesses fit together. I didn't fully understand equity and ownership or anything like that. There was just something interesting to me, like, wow, there's a team called HR and a team called sales and a team called marketing, and they all come together and that's a business. And how do you get people to work together? And how do you know how do you know the different things that people do? And how come there's something called a share price? And how come people are investing in this? And how come these people are talking in the paper about it? Was all very interesting to me. So I immediately, as soon as I was like, less football, I was digging into, I want to invest in some stocks and shares. And I had a friend at the time, he was like, yeah, put some money into Amazon, into YouTube, and looking back, he was bang on the money. And he was a trader at a bank. He was just much older than me, but I didn't understand what that meant at the time. But he obviously had the insight to know, like, put your money in these stocks. So that was my first experience, like, investing in stocks and shares.
Wow. So from footy to the FT.
Yeah, from 40 to the FT. I like that.
Sat on that for a minute.
Yeah.
It got funnier the longer I sat on it.
Oh, she just branded me. I love it.
I feel like that's
This is why it's very therapeutic to
Yeah.
I take so much out
I
of
can't
these
believe I
conversations.
haven't heard that story before. Cause it's
I didn't know if I'd shared that before, but I think it makes sense because the other stories of like growing up and why did I invest in a property so early and stuff. I think all of this is connected to that.
And we talk a lot about that in the money mindset episode as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so that beautiful reinvention. Yeah. What else are the big reinventions for Andy?
I'm going to go through one or two, but I actually am really still hanging on that cliffhanger of learning about
This is how we get
yours.
people to listen to the whole episode, Andy.
Because you wait to the good part. The next reinvention was probably at university because I studied accounting because basically my dad told me doctor, accountant, lawyer or engineer. I'm like, accounting, it sounds interesting because, again, I'm geeking out on how businesses fit together and this is the numbers side. And it was really interesting because looking back, I became the president of the Entrepreneur Society at uni. Entrepreneurship was the one module that I got a first in. And I networked during my whole work experience, year in placement. And that's where I got my mentor from who got me into my first job. So the actual accounting itself, I realized very quickly I didn't want to become an accountant. But all of those added benefits around it helped me kind of reinvent myself and get myself into my next thing.
Network.
Yeah. And then that got me into management consulting, which was my first job, which was so great for feeding that curiosity around how businesses fit together.
Yeah.
It was the perfect first job for that.
I love that. Okay, I feel like it's
I've got a few more, but I'll touch on it later because I want to get onto you.
Okay. I think what strikes me is this idea of reinvention. I think hearing you talk, I definitely can think of healthier reinventions that I've gone through. But they, for me, almost feel like more like evolutions.
Ooh, that's nice. I like evolutions, actually.
Yeah, and I think
rather than completely reinventing yourself.
And I think this is a little bit the crux for me because I think so. And we did a whole episode on transitional periods.
Yeah.
And I've been through some big ones in life. Spoiler alert for that episode. And whenever I go through a big transitional period, I feel the need to look very different. Okay.
Interesting.
So yeah. So about a few months maybe after my mum died,
Yeah.
I had always had pretty similar hair, right? It was long and blonde to varying degrees. And I decided to cut it off. So I went to a brunette, very short bob in one fell swoop. Wouldn't recommend. There were definite tears. The hairdresser was not ready for the amount of emotion that came with this haircut. But it was about this, I guess, needing to
Physically
feel different.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to necessarily be who I was feeling at that time. And again, I went through a big breakup last year. And obviously, what do you do when you have a breakup? You get bangs, you get a fringe. I've actually kept it this time. I thought, and I went to my hairdresser.
Love your fringe.
I actually love
your fringe.
I went to my hairdresser at the time and I was like, look, I appreciate I do not meet the mental health checklist for getting a fringe that any good hairdresser will give. Like, I am going through a huge emotional turbulence, but I want the fringe anyway. And luckily she trusted me and we did the fringe. But I think there is this point for me that often what happens is there's a real correlation with wanting to look different so that I almost don't recognize the person that things have happened to.
Wow.
Like, I want to, and I think about this a lot, like, what is the psychology that everyone who goes through a breakup, like, often does do a huge visual change. And I think it's almost this thing of wanting to look in the mirror and see someone who that didn't happen to, see a different person. And I think sometimes that can feel like a healthy marker and a healthy change. But often I think when I've been trying to reinvent myself, and I think back a lot to when I was in school and even at university at the beginning, I was often at the edge of the cool group. And I often had like maybe one or two friends who were in that group properly. And I always felt like I didn't fully fit in, like I was being like begrudgingly allowed to go to the things I did go to sometimes. And like I was just never good enough to be in that group. And over time, what I increasingly found were people who just didn't make me feel like that. And I felt really at ease. But when I found those, it was never like a big reinvention point. It was like an easing off.
Yeah.
But often when I was trying to fit in, that was when I was trying to reinvent myself. You know, if I just get this style of dress, or if I just get this hairstyle, whatever it is, and often quite physical reinvention, then I will suddenly be accepted.
Yeah.
And for me, I think a lot of what I've been reflecting on the last...
There's a lot of layers here, Hattie.
Oh, the therapy is coming. It's clear it's right ready for the therapy. But I think I have been reflecting about it a lot in the last 6 months, because I'm coming out of this big life-changing event, and it feels like, I don't know if you feel this, but also when something big happens, I almost feel that like I should be reinventing myself. Like, this is, often people talk about, this is going to be a great time to, and we talked about in the transition episode, it is a great time to try scary things and be who you want to be. But also, I'm 32. I don't want to reinvent myself. I quite like myself now. I don't want to be this new person every 5 years. I just want to keep easing more into me.
I think there's layers of reinvention from hearing you. It's like onions and peeling back the layers. And I think at Hattie's core, Hattie is Hattie. But I guess you're stepping into a more authentic self.
Yeah.
You're being more you. And actually that physical turnaround is actually surface level.
Yeah, 100%.
But when I speak to Hattie, when I perform with Hattie, when I work with Hattie, when I laugh with Hattie, it's actually still Hattie. That hasn't been reinvented or changed. Yeah. It's not like you've developed a new laugh, like, do you know what I mean? Like your actual attributes of who you are, it's still the same. It would be really weird if you did speak in a like completely different voice. And
so I used to. Whenever I used to public speak, I would talk in a different voice. My friends would always laugh at me and be like, "Oh, you're using your public speaking voice." I was like, I don't know what it is. Every time.
But yeah, I feel like because the identity that I'm familiar with is the same, when the changes happen, like the fringe, it's like, it's cool. It's like I think as maybe this is a male point of view as well, by the way, and there might be a gender lens to this, there might not.
Yeah, almost certainly.
Sorry if I'm representing all the males incorrectly here. But like this hairstyle that I've got in my hair now with the locks, I've had it before, you've seen it before. But then sometimes after like 8 months or whatnot, I just need to switch it up.
I'm the same, I get bored.
Yeah, I get bored. I think that's the term. I get
Yeah.
bored. But then there's a limit to my boredness because I'm not going to get bored to the degree where I'm going to cut my whole
Yeah,
hair off.
yeah.
But if I did, that would feel like a reinvention to me.
Yeah. No, I think that's fair. And I think to your point, it's right. I mean, the funny thing I did find, rogue observation, when I first got a fringe, actually a friend who'd been through a really big breakup told me, don't get a fringe, because I got a fringe. And what I realised about the fringe was I hide. Like I wanted to hide after my breakup.
I don't feel like that with you, though. Can I
You
just
know what?
say
It
that?
was true at the beginning.
Really?
And I actually, interestingly, I let it grow out for the first few weeks I had it. I let it grow really long. It was basically in front of my eyes.
How did you feel about social media during that time of reinventing yourself, growing the fringe?
Good question. I was actually finding it quite hard in that time because I always struggle with social media, where I find it really helpful when people are really honest on social media when they're going through hard stuff.
You
But
don't want to share too much while you're going through it.
Well, and also maybe I've internalized some unhealthy ideas, but I don't want to be attention seeking. We talked about this in the previous one. And it feels like sometimes to be your real self, that would be going on and crying and actually just being an absolute mess. And I feel like I don't know if I want. The reason I would do that would be because I would want other people to feel like they were okay if they were in a similar space. But sometimes I let the voice in my head that says other people would judge me for that and think, oh, she's just being attention seeking, that would almost be, I don't want that.
I think it's important that everyone respects each other's personal boundaries. And I personally am not comfortable with crying on social media.
Yeah.
But I feel more comfortable crying to Lynette.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, Lynette's probably one of the only people I probably feel comfortable crying with. Outside of that, even my brothers or my mum, I feel uncomfortable crying in front of. You know, but someone else's boundary is social media. Someone else's boundary isn't social media, it's work. Someone else's, it's just all different personal boundaries.
I think that's true. And I think, and I think it does come back to giving yourselves periods where you can explore those boundaries. But with the theme of, I guess, reinvention, I want to like almost unpack it a little bit more structured, because I think so much of this podcast is about trying to untangle your life, trying to ask the questions that are really difficult, trying to face up to the things that actually you might have to take an action on that you don't want to have to deal with. Going through those really messy transitions, dealing with stuff like everything that brings up around financial mindset. I mean, really digging into some messy,
really tangly. All tangled.
Very naughty.
Very naughty.
And so I think reinvention comes up within that.
Yeah.
I sometimes feel the lure of another version of me that I can almost picture, that I just think will have it all together.
So do you feel when you talk about reinvention in that sense, is it a transformation? You know, like caterpillar to butterfly. Is it
like the Hattie that I sometimes think I could reinvent myself to, she's so disciplined. Her house is always tidy.
This tidy house thing is a thing.
It's a thing.
It's a thing.
It's a theme.
I could probably name 3 episodes.
I think more than 3 probably. She's on time for everything. You know, lots of things. They're more structural. And some of them are probably achievable with some work.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think
as a shift in the behaviours.
But to your point, I think sometimes the way I talk to myself about them is almost like it's a different person, not it's an evolution of me. And I think this is where I want to come with a reinvention point of, often I think when things feel really messy, and why I shared the example of the fringe is we almost want the separation. I want to step into someone who is different so that almost I'm shedding.
Can I use an analogy here to further this conversation? We work a lot with startups and technology entrepreneurs, and when they iterate on a product, they're trying to tweak it to continuously improve it to make it better for their customers. But on the occasion, a product like Slack, which was a gaming software, does a complete pivot and becomes a communication software.
Yeah.
When we're talking about reinventions, are we talking about complete pivots here?
Yeah.
Or are we talking about iterating on the same application?
And I think this is almost what I guess I want to challenge people to think about, is often it feels like we're asking ourselves to be a different person. And I guess what I want to encourage is how could we be kinder in the way we explore evolution for ourselves so that it's not leaving everything behind like a, unrecognizable caterpillar. And there is a idea I love. There's a brilliant book called The Comfort Book by Matt Haig.
Never heard of that. So many good
Brilliant
book
book.
recommendations.
It's like a lovely book if you're ever feeling sad or low. Has just really short reflections that you can dip into
Love
that
that.
are just sharing. One of them talks about the kind of going from caterpillar to butterfly, and talks about how actually in the cocoon
The
caterpillar,
metamorphosis.
but and in that process you literally break down into like goop. He calls it caterpillar soup. And this idea that actually you have to almost completely come apart, melt down to then reinvent.
Yeah.
But I think what I want us to not forget is that it's okay to still, I don't think in life it's ever that,
Yeah.
for us at least, I don't think we come out and we're suddenly a butterfly.
There isn't, but I think similar to the caterpillar being in the what do you call it? The crystal, the chrysalis.
Yeah.
The chrysalis. I think there's a catalyst sometimes that's almost like a chemical reaction that kicks us into gear.
100%.
And when I look back as being a kid, I was always someone like curious about the world, like learning about others, interested in other things. But I was born in an environment in Tottenham where I felt like, oh, but I don't want to move away too much from the core of what it means to be a Tottenham boy.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I've got my friends here, my identity's here. Like I am from Ends, I am from Tottenham. And I'll never forget there was one multi-level marketing scheme that I joined. I didn't know what the term meant at the time, called Success University.
Is this like a pyramid scheme?
Pyramid scheme.
Great.
Success
I love that you're still
University.
calling it a multi-level marketing scheme.
Success University, ran by a guy called Matt Morris. I even remember doing my research at the time. Okay. And it was introduced to me by an elder in Tottenham, an older friend who was like someone that I respected.
Yeah.
So because it came from him as a source,
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I'm going to check this out. I'm going to go with him to the event. I was sold at the event and I joined his pyramid. And then I got about 20 people in Tottenham to join me under my pyramid. And then I realized that
Good early sales skills, Andy.
very good leadership and sales skills, I would say early on. But when I realized it was a multi-level marketing scheme, I stopped it. I told everyone, like, stop paying, like, let's stop this. But I was left with all these products. But the products were like CDs, books, and material all around personal development. So it was like Brian Tracy, Zig Ziglar, Jim Rohn, Les Brown. I don't know if anyone recognizes these names that I'm saying. Anthony Robbins. But these are like motivational speakers, sales coaches. So they actually started like rewiring my mind. And I realized when I was reading this content, it made me realize two things. One, where I'm born in life doesn't determine where I end up.
Yeah.
I started to believe that now because I was hearing these stories. And the second is, and this sounds really basic and capitalistic, but profits are better than wages. I learned that from that material and it set me on a course for the rest of my career, that stuff. Because it just gave me a mindset that I could assimilate to and be like, yep, that's a bit of me. That's a bit of what I was looking for. Actually, that aligns with my way of thinking. I'm going to lean into implementing this stuff now. I actually believe. I was curious before, now I believe.
Pyramid scheme reshaped your whole life.
Yeah, I'll say that unashamedly.
I mean, I love it. It makes me think, again, back to I think a point we talked about before. I want to make sure as well that we make this useful for people who listen.
All I've got is stories, to be honest. So I trust that you're going to help make it useful.
I mean, I'm feeling my way here and knitting live. I think for me, there are multiple things that are maybe helpful for us to unpack.
Okay.
One is, what are the points that we tend to want to reinvent, and how do we make sure that those are not hurting us in the process? Two, I think, to your point of how do we reinvent without losing I think there are two sides to the coin from what you just said to me. One is like, actually, I do want to keep my background and I don't want to suddenly be in a place where it's completely impossible to tell where I've come from because that's still a part of me.
Yeah, it's identity level, yeah.
Exactly. But secondly, how do I not let that limit where I see myself being able to go?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think Tim Campbell is one of the best examples of this. one of the best people. I mean,
The Apprentice, Tim Campbell.
yeah. So won The Apprentice, and then became one of Lord Sugar's advisors on The Apprentice. He's an investor, businessman, and I saw him speak live at an Imperial event for Black founders, and he was, I mean, just one of the best speakers I've ever seen in my life. His storytelling is just literally you and him are at the top.
I appreciate
He's
that.
so good. But what felt very true was that he was achieving so much. He was doing incredibly remarkable things, and he still felt like the same person. You know, when he was telling his stories, there didn't feel like a disconnect from when he was telling his stories about being a young kid to now.
Love that.
And so I think is important in the reinvention, that it's not a setting aside or a hiding or a.
It's all part of the journey.
Yeah, I think, so maybe
I think it's hard to see it when you're going through it, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I'll talk about career transition.
I think that's a good one.
Yeah, I remember when my daughter was 1, I left my job as a product manager, and I joined an accelerator program, and I failed, didn't get investment, and I wasn't earning. My wife wasn't earning. On the surface, it was a ludicrous risk to take at that time. But I think entrepreneurs are all irrational to a degree. And I ended up starting a podcast because I was like a bit tired of blogging all the time and the newsletter that I was doing for years. And I started this podcast called Technicity. Never brought out an episode. But one of the people that I interviewed was a lady called Arlen Hamilton. And during that conversation, like, we really struck a chord, got on. And I said, why don't you come to the UK and I'll introduce you to a few VCs, a few limited partners that invest in VCs, angel investors, founders. And we'll just like make this trip around you experiencing our ecosystem. She said, yes, she comes over. I think you came. Did you come to one of the events? Maybe not.
Maybe.
But we had a public event at Boulderton Ventures. It was a rammed, packed room full of founders and a few investors, and we did like a fireside chat, and then we had a number of private events at different VCs' offices. And my friend Zoe, who's now at Sequoia, but at the time was at EQT Ventures, arranged for us to have a meeting in her office with Matt and Czech from Ada Ventures and a few people around the table. And during that meeting, Arlen said he doesn't know it yet, but I want to make Andy the managing director of my accelerator business. And the reason that moment meant so much to me, looking back now, is because I was going through a process of reinvention. I'd left my career job as a product manager. I'd just become a father, which is a new identity hat that I've got on, which is quite permanent. And then, and then I wasn't earning much of an income, so I didn't feel very responsible, given that I just took on this new role as a father, which is quite permanent and expensive. So when she made that job offer, it felt right, but it was never my intention to get a job. I was actually inviting her over because of the goodness, or I guess how much I loved entrepreneurship and this ecosystem, but it ended up in a commercial opportunity. And then that launched me into a space and then into a brand around underrepresented founders and entrepreneurship and investing that I didn't write for myself, and it was never in my strategic plan or in my roadmap, but became a big part of my identity. Even till now, that's a big part of who I've become.
Which I guess is something we spoke about in the first episode, right? I think being intentional about life doesn't mean you're going to not make room for the amazing opportunities that you never predicted that come up along the way.
Yeah.
So
also relates to our transitions episode,
100%. And so much in there. So question, did
we meet after that journey?
Yeah, we did.
Okay, that's really interesting.
Yeah. And I want to come back to that kind of that process of reinvention with a job you're kind of given rather than seeking out.
Yeah.
But also curious as a new father at that time.
Yeah.
What was that reinvention? Was it a reinvention?
It's an evolution, like you said. I like that language around evolution.
What were some of the hard bits and some of the, like, identity wise?
Yeah.
I'm so curious. I've obviously not done it, and I'll never be a father.
I think there's 2 or 3 mindsets I had at the time. How can I feel what I don't know? Are you going to be good or are you going to be bad? I don't know. I'm going to give it a try because I don't know. I don't know yet. Second thing was, it was very pivotal for me that, like, work until I had a child was the sun of my universe. when I was a management consultant, I went and lived in South Africa. I went to Hong Kong. I went to Shenzhen. I lived in San Francisco. As soon as I had a child, I dropped my 10-year visa to the US. I said, I'm coming back to London. And my family became the center of my universe. It reorientated how I was managing my time. Until today, I've stayed quite true to that. So there's little values like, there's one I've got called 2 and 5, which means 2 evenings a week. I can go to events, speak at events. But 5 evenings a week, I got to be home with the family. And you've heard me share that before. So I've tried to be consistent with that where I can.
Very consistent.
But that came because I had a family. And I think the third thing was it taught me that in life, there's so many examples of great people that have done great things when doing it for the first time. Whether that's parenting, whether that's being a husband, whether that's like building a venture firm, even though I've never worked in venture before or worked in an accelerator business. Great people can do things when doing it for the first time. And that was a mantra that I really held on to and I still believe until today. Don't judge me by my past and my CV. Actually, I've got all these transferable skills, and if I believe I back myself that I can do that thing, I can figure it out.
Yeah, love that. And so, and then in terms of career reinvention, what's helped it different? Because you've actually had like a very, we often say this, it's so easy to see the red thread when you look backwards.
Yeah.
When you're in it, it often feels like a much bigger pivot. I mean, you look back and you can kind of all make it somehow line
100%.
up. But it's much muddier in the process.
Yeah.
What's helped at your different career reinventions?
You know, it's funny because when I speak to like executives who have been in their company for like 30, 40 years, they talk about this concept of having several careers in the same company. Yeah. And I feel like I've done the inverse. I've had several careers in different companies. So I went from management consultant, which is like a really broad base skill set. We call it like a T-shaped skill set. You get a really broad base as a consultant across a lot of different skills. And then I went into product management, where it's like, all right, this is where I develop the almost like leg of my T here, and I get deep into a certain subject matter. But in product management, it's really beneficial for venture investing. And actually, my background education-wise in college was all like humanities subjects, like theology, sociology, history. And if you think about investing, a lot of people think it's just like data and it's numbers, but actually the decision-making process to invest into an entrepreneur initially is actually based on more of the humanities subjects, because you're more analyzing someone's behaviors, the psychology of a person, understanding their mindset. You're really assessing the human potential of someone without in the absence of data. So actually, that all of that lent well, especially product management and that mindset, to venture investing and assessing startups. And then once I've gone from venture investing into facilitating, actually that was quite natural because it was angel investing school, which was the bridge. So angel investing school, I was facilitating something I was very familiar with.
What strikes me every time you're talking about this, you're almost talking about what am I taking from the last
100%. I see them, I call them multiplier effects. Like this thing times this thing equals this greater number. You know, so if I do like 8 plus 8, it equals 16, but 8 times 8 is 64. And so I see them all as multiplier experiences, like that. They don't add up, they multiply each other.
It makes me think, I think for people who are listening and feeling, maybe again linking back to the transitional period, but feeling like they're on the cusp of reinvention or they want a reinvention, what would you say to them? Hattie,
first of all, I've got 2 questions I want to ask you. How did you feel in the evolution from university to your first corporate job? And then I want to know, in the gap that I met you, in between the corporate job and you starting Guestworks.
So I was lucky in the sense that it wasn't a corporate job, but it was in corporate innovation. Yeah. But that wasn't what I thought I was doing. So when I left university, I actually took some time off after university, and did a bit of travel because I hadn't done it between.
Where did you go to?
Went to Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam, Myanmar.
Got my whole hit list
Nepal,
there.
Yeah.
I ain't been to any of them. I'd love to go to all of them.
Yeah, very beautiful places. Some politically challenging, but very beautiful places. Very rich histories, very culturally. Yeah, it was incredible. And And so I took some time, and then I kind of thought, do I want to be a founder? And I had this idea for a startup, and I'd been freelancing at that point for different startups for a while.
I was going to say, how did you even know about startups and being a founder?
I ran my college bar, and I met a founder through that work.
You told me that story.
Yeah. And so I knew about the startup world. And I think actually it's interesting. This point of identity often has come up as well when I think about reinventing myself. So I've had lots of points where I've often stepped away from something that I was pushing really hard towards, because I realized that what I was trying to invent with that was often quite connected to a title, or I would be a partner, I'd be the youngest partner in the company, or I'd be a founder, or it was more connected to the who could I say I was, rather than who was I. And often there was a disconnect that then led me to actually kind of swerve that attempted reinvention to something that was actually more natural evolution.
We both played team sports. Hockey was one of your team sports. Did you play netball?
Yeah, I played everything in school, made me play, and then quit a lot of them as
Did
soon
you
as I
actually
was
enjoy
allowed.
any of them?
I liked rounders.
That was fun.
Yeah.
That's like a summer activity,
Yeah,
end of
I
school.
loved it.
A little bit of fun.
Loved it. Sunny, warm.
Yes.
A theme for us in team sports.
Yes. And we like sun and we like warmth. Yeah. Although I didn't get invited to Miami, but that's another episode. Okay, so team sports.
Yes.
Is reinvention a team sport? Are there others that you have around you who support you when going through that season of reinvention?
Yes, and maybe some who play against you if it goes wrong.
Okay.
I think it's hard sometimes when you're trying to reinvent yourself, you're trying to evolve into another version of yourself, and you're surrounded by people who knew the old you.
Ooh.
And they're still clinging to a version of you that maybe you want to feel a bit distance from.
You knew me, but you don't know me.
Yeah, or even like, I'm not like that anymore.
Yeah.
And I feel like this is a big thing with family.
Yeah.
Because I don't know about you, but I definitely do have the propensity to slip into my teenage self when I'm surrounded by my like nuclear family. And with all of the drama that she had, and a lot of the like, I not always my best self as a teenager. But then it's hard because you almost want to show like, I'm not like that anymore. Like I've become more aware. I'm hopefully more thoughtful, like all those things. But they remember the old version.
Yeah.
And that's hard.
Yeah, I think with long-term friends and family, that must be so true. But even certain people that I feel like have known me at different points of life, like Andy, the product manager, or Andy, the traveler, backpacker, or but it's like depending on where you met me and where I was at that time, you might hold on to that, even though I've let that thing go.
Yeah, but also I think the opposite is true. It's also the most grounding thing.
Yeah,
and
having the right people around.
Yeah, and a lot of my friendships are very long friendships. So my, two of my best friends, I've known one since I was 11 months old and one since I was 3 years old.
Yeah, I love that. I've got one friend like that as well. We need to get our friends together that we've known since we were in nursery.
Oh, fun.
That would be cool, isn't it?
That would be very funny. And I think it is like that interesting thing of like, they've known so many versions of you.
Yeah.
And yes, that sometimes means you will default to the younger versions. But actually, it is also really beautifully grounded because they see everything that stays the same in that process.
And those people are your biggest cheerleaders.
100%.
Now, I'm thinking of my guy, SB Steven. You'll love him.
Yeah.
Biggest cheerleader. And our DMs are the best on IG. He just sends me all this motivational stuff, inspiring stuff. And I had to create a folder on IG, like wisdom from SB.
I love that.
So whenever I need a little bit of that, I just go into that folder. I'm like, oh yeah, I needed that.
And I think often, and yeah, mine are definitely inspiration, definitely cheerleading. Also, like often telling me, just be gentler. Can we be a bit gentler with ourselves? Because they know that I struggle with that. So that we talked about that in the rest episode, helping people who help you rest.
Yeah.
But I think it's definitely. I love this idea of reinvention as this kind of team sport.
Yeah, I like that as well.
I think you need people who can, the encouragement that you can be that you've got it in you, that they've seen something in you. To your point, like maybe friends who can help. Maybe this comes to what we're going to go to later about the reflections, but maybe sitting down with friends, just like we did in that first episode, asking people what comes easy to me that's hard to other people, asking people, what have you seen in me that you think I could step into even more? What could I use in the next phase where I want to get better at these things?
And they have your best interests at heart.
100%.
100%.
100%. I love it.
I love that. As you're talking, another kind of like little question came into my head as well. Do you ever have a little bit of regret when letting something go of what could have been? I give you an example. Like there was a consultancy that I joined, and they were a startup, and I moved with them to South Africa, then to San Fran. I knew they were going places.
Yeah.
I knew if I just stayed on that ship, I would be one of the captains on that ship right now.
Yeah, the FOMO.
You know, and the founding partner of that consultancy has said to me a number of times, Andy, you know, you would have been a great partner here.
Yeah.
You know, and I know that's true. But do you ever feel that little bit like, oh, what if, or if I didn't let that go? Have I fully even let that go?
Not so much. I think one thing I live by is I tend to regret the things I don't do more than the things I do. And so...
You do?
I do. I do.
Mm-hmm.
I've now got a do song in my head. I think the key is, for me at least, and I think different people are different, if I've not done something because I've done something else, normally the regret isn't there because it's like, well, I'm now in this different space.
Yes.
And I'm enjoying it. And as long as I've stepped into it for the right reasons, which we'll come to when we talk about the prompts, I'm normally happy. I get a bit of it. I'm not going to pretend there's no part of me that isn't like...
You're a hopeless optimist. Yeah.
But I don't deeply regret it because I kind of think, well, there was a reason I stepped away. There was a reason I moved into this thing instead.
Yeah.
Maybe
you see it as a multiplier effect in a way as well then.
My biggest issue is actually that I think it's almost like not the looking back with regret, it's the looking forward, because I actually live my life quite a lot to try not to live back with regret.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the looking forward without being paralyzed by all the things that you could do, or by not overcommitting to do all those things. That is, I find the harder thing is like, I get the FOMO looking forward rather than looking back.
Yeah, I feel like I'm going to go to an Avengers analogy here.
Oh.
Are you familiar with the Avengers?
Deeply, intimately.
Excellent. So I feel like this is like the multiverse.
Yeah.
Like you are aware that there's all of these alternative universes
100%.
that you could... And it's almost like it's the curse of the fact that you are aware of that. You're better off not knowing about that, and then you can live a more singular life. But because you know it, actually it's that paradox of choice.
Yeah, I mean, and there's a lot of luck in that. When you have the optionality, you have to be also grateful that you have the options, right?
Absolutely.
And so, but yeah, like, is to keep your analogy, there are times I feel like, so frustrated that I could be the Hulk, that I didn't, that I don't know what to do. But most of the time, looking backwards, I'm pretty chill about what I've done.
Yeah, I get that. I was going to make it worse and carry on the analogy.
Yeah, I know. I tried too hard with the Hulk.
I'm not going to do that now. That's all good. Who's your favourite Avenger, just out of interest?
Ooh,
Is there a favourite?
I feel like I'm going to embarrass myself. Is Thor an Avenger?
Who?
Thor?
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Then Thor.
Yeah, Thor is.
I also really like Loki, but I know he's not an Avenger. But
but Loki, he's really cool.
Loki is Loki cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Who's yours?
Probably King T'Challa. Was it Black Panther? Because he passed away.
Oh, yeah. Also, epic character as well. Like,
character.
fair enough.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Although I do love the X-Men, so I can't wait
so
for the
I
X-Men
don't understand. So wait, are they all Avengers?
Yeah, they're all Avengers. Yeah, they've just expanded it and grown it out. But
so
there was the core.
Because there was the Avengers Assemble, which I use a lot in my day-to-day
core,
life.
but they reinvented themselves.
Evolved.
Evolved, exactly. We're going to bring it back now.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Can I change my answer because I also really like Black Panther?
Okay, no problem.
I didn't realise he was an option.
We can both.
Not that deep in the Marvel
I get it.
universe.
You like the core. I
just thought it was like Avengers Assemble.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not Iron Man.
Reinventions sometimes go unnoticed when actually they're slow and steady over time.
Yeah.
Do you feel, looking at your life, even outside of your career, that you've had a slow and steady reinvention that perhaps has gone unnoticed?
I think when I first think about it, no. I'm like, I can see the big pivot points where I pitched for different jobs, where I left work, where, relationships ended, death happened. I can see, if I look back, those are almost the markers I see.
Yeah, there was a catalyst.
But actually, I think when I think about it, it's been a much longer evolution to being happy being Hattie.
Yeah. I like
And
that.
to shedding a lot. I mean, still so much work to do, but a lot of the sense that I wasn't, a lot of the self-conscious sense that I was too much or not enough in certain way, all those things. I think I feel much more comfortable in my own skin than I ever have in my life.
Oh, it's amazing, isn't it?
It's so,
No, it is. It's good to
honestly,
hear
it's
that.
so lush. Would recommend
Yeah.
to a friend, like getting rid of a load of the stuff that I was doing to please other people.
Yeah.
I'm still a massive people pleaser. I'm not quite there yet, but I do think that has been a much longer evolution and much harder to pinpoint the shifts. I think that's been much more day to day,
Yeah.
little by little. Lots of people like helping me
Yeah.
realize that.
Oh, I feel so grateful. I think it's a good time to kind of run up our episode and share
Okay.
a journaling prompt.
Okay. Do you have one in mind?
I don't, but you had some good suggestions.
Great. Now I will remember them.
Okay.
They were. Does anyone do you do this where you can't remember what you were going to say, so you just keep talking and hope it comes?
Well, one of them was around leaving and letting go.
Yes. Ah, yes. Thank you. Okay. So thought number 1 was around when we feel at a point of reinvention, just how can we pause and check? Number 1, am I trying to escape something that maybe I actually need to process a bit so I'm not running away from something?
Yeah.
Number 2, what do I want to let go in this that isn't serving me genuinely?
Yeah, which is like, what do I want to unlearn?
Yes, love that as a framing.
Yeah.
Number 3, what am I going to take forward into the next stage?
Yes. What do I need to learn as well? Yeah.
And I think there's an overarching one for me, which some people may relate to, others may not. How am I in that evolution not asking myself to be someone different that has this inherent judgment of who the old, in inverted commas, me was?
Yeah. I think something else that would be helpful as a prompt is just really reflecting at my core, who am I? And what are the parts of me that actually stay me and don't change? We didn't talk about it much in the episode, but I think it's a really good reflection to think, actually, what are the parts of me that are just stable and this is who I am?
I'm going to, final minute, what are those core parts for you? I want to know.
Well, let's do it for each other. I'll name one for you, you name one for me, and then we'll end.
Oh, okay.
Because we can name more than one.
Oh, there's so many. Yeah, can I have more than one? One feels cool. Can we have 3? I'll overthink it if I just have one.
No, one is good. It forces the mark because we're gonna be running out of time in a second. Yeah,
I can run out of time arguing with you, but okay, fine.
Yeah.
1, you go first.
I've known you for a number of years now.
Yeah.
And one thing that I can consistently say about you is that you're a very, very caring friend.
Aww.
And I don't mean just towards Andy. No, I can name a number of people on this podcast right now where I think like, wow, Hattie has gone above and beyond to be there for these people. And there's people that I've never met. And I hear what you're doing for them and where you'll go for them and visiting them in hospital. And I'm like, I think she thinks this is normal. Like, there's not many people I know in my phone book who will go to the extent that Hattie will go to just be by someone's side.
Oh, Gandhi, you got me.
I think that's
The end of the podcast, I'm going to cry.
I think that's consistently you.
God. Okay, right, I've got to pull myself
When I
together.
share that, there's memories that come into your head, right? That you're like, you know what I'm referring to. There's probably a lot more that I don't know.
I think also there's a lovely thing of like, if that is quite emotional. That is genuinely like if someone could describe, like if I got to pick.
I think it matters to you.
Yeah.
I think you stand on that as a that matters to Hattie's philosophy, her values. That's who she is.
Yeah.
It matters to you to be there for others, and that's why you value when people are there for you.
God, no pressure to do you.
Give
that
some
was genuine. I wanted to hold hands.
No.
Okay, fine. Okay, I need to do a good job of yours now. That was so good.
I'm so happy. Sometimes you're just happy you went first.
Why should I go second? Okay. I think so many things come to mind of you. I don't want to do
That's why you
one.
went 3.
That's why I wanted 3. Because I feel like, okay, can I cheat? I'm going to do 3 because I'll take forever trying to do 1. I think for me, there is this beautiful part for me that you are wholly you bring all of yourself to what you do, but you also don't. What I'm trying to get at is that for you, I feel like everywhere you go, you show up wholly yourself. You bring all of yourself. You're very present in the moment. But I think a lot of people who do that in a way that it's at the expense of things that also matter to them. Whereas I feel like, a bit like we were talking about with your 2 and 5 rule, I feel like I'm always confident with you that when you show up with me, you're present and you're there, but also you're still utterly your fatherly self. You're gonna give the time to that you need. I don't get a sense with you that you're ever making anyone feel like your time with them is kind of rushed and frantic, because you're taking the time to really invest where you are, and you've been very deliberate in where you invest so that you can show up in that right way for the people you care about and the people you want to be there for.
I love that. That is 100% me, and I appreciate that because I care about that, and that's why one is enough.
Okay.
We're gonna end it on that. It's a beautiful note to each other.
Aww.
We're gonna take that now, aren't we?
Yeah, I'm gonna replay this every night.
Last 2 seconds of the podcast. Constantly.